This is the Real Estate Investing 365 podcast, your go-to source for real estate investing strategies so you can start living the life you want and get where you want to go. With your host, Justin Hanna.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Real Estate Investing 365. Today I have a great guest, Autumn Rankin from West Texas. She's in Abilene. Hey, Autumn, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So real quick, before we really dive into your real estate adventures in your career, why don't you give us a brief history about yourself and where you're from, how you got started in real estate, and then we'll get into where you're going.
Okay, so I'm actually from Central Texas, and we got started in real estate when I was stationed in Hawaii. And another person who was very successful with their business had given me the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So I read that book, and then of course it said on the radio that he was coming to town, his seminar. And so I went to the free seminar to learn more, and that was the start.
Okay. Yeah. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That's how a lot of people, I think that's probably how I got started in it too. I don't even know how I got on the book, but you read that and it just gets you motivated.
It was a mindset. A huge mindset shift.
Oh yeah, totally. It's a awesome book. So that's cool. So you were in the military.
Yes.
Okay. Station, and you're in Hawaii. I think that's part of the Rich Dad story, right? He's was in Hawaii, or supposedly. Anyways, that's the story.
He's from there.
He's from there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you get to meet him when you came to town?
No, he wasn't really there. It was his group of employees.
Oh, okay. Okay. I understand.
Yeah.
So that did you know anybody prior to that, that did real estate investing, or was that the first inkling you had of real estate investing?
Well, there was one person, and she was the one who gave me the book. She had actually built her empire on a logistics company that she created, but I had also seen that she had a small 8-unit apartment complex. And so I simply called her up. She and I grew up in the same tiny town of less than 1,000 people. Mm. And I asked if I could come and see her. And she said yes. And I just said, how did you do this? How did you get here? This is what I want. And so she talked to me about wealth versus being rich.
Okay, so she kind of explained it to you a little bit.
Yes.
So you just had this idea that, man, going the regular 9-to-5 job or working for 40 years and just putting into regular investments maybe wasn't the best idea. You just kind of thought real estate's going to would be the ticket, or?
I just thought I needed a change. I never was getting above $65,000 a year, no matter how hard I worked or what changes I made. Mm-hmm. And I needed something different. She built a multi-million-dollar company, and I needed that. Yeah,
no, that's great. That's cool. Okay, so she's kind of the one that I guess got you started in real estate, and then you read the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. So where did you go from there? What actions did you take to move towards your first deal?
So the action that I took was my husband didn't like to read. He refused. Mm. And so I ordered the book on audio, and I took him on a road trip as like a last vacation before we PCS'd. And this was in North Carolina before we went to Hawaii. And so I was like, oh, hey, I got a book. So I started playing it, and he was trapped in the car because I had to have him on board.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't do it by myself. And so with him having the same mindset that I did, then we were together in this.
Okay. What year was this in that you kind of?
That was in 2015.
Oh, in 2015. Okay. So you trap your husband in the car, you take him on a road trip, and you make him listen to Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Was he on board right away, or?
He was on board right away. Yes.
Right. That book has a way of just switching you instantly, huh?
It does.
Okay. So 2015, what was your first deal? What was it, and when did you purchase it?
So I was stationed in Hawaii, and I only knew my market back home. And so it was like close to San Antonio. And so I just kept watching the market, kept watching all the deals, evaluating all the deals. My husband and my kids were back in Texas, and I found on Freddie Mac's Home Steps site, it was a double wide trailer on a 1/4 acre, and it wound up being right down the road from my mom. And I knew that area, I knew the market. And so I told him about it, but he wouldn't go look at it. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to come to Texas. So I did an overnight flight to Texas, and I got in at like 8 o'clock, and I said, okay, call the realtor. We're going to look at the house right now. So we went to look at the house. It had to be an all cash offer, just the way that they had it set up.
Mm-hmm.
So we put in a contract. It was at $45,000. And I had 24 hours to come up with $45,000.
Okay.
And so we didn't have any money. So we had 2 small 401ks that were about $15,000 total. So we cashed those out. I called the bank and got a personal loan for $20,000. And then we borrowed $10,000 from his best friend.
Okay.
And that's how we got the money.
All right. So a little creative financing right there. That's good.
Yes.
So you had to have a all cash purchase, probably because it was a double wide, and something having to do with that.
No, a lot of them, they'll finance it, but I don't know why this one they wouldn't finance, and they just said it had to be cash.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you got hooked on real estate through Rich Dad Poor Dad. You were in Hawaii, your husband was in Texas, and you were just browsing the MLS and Zillow and Realtor and all these different places, looking at properties, evaluating properties. How did you learn how to start evaluating the properties? Did you find it on some forums, or you just doing reading, or what?
It was just reading. It was actually just from reading Rich Dad's book. And then I was just Googling, like, evaluating a property. And so I just knew what the market values were for houses. And so I knew that when I came across a good deal, I would know it right away.
Okay, sweet. So you found the deal, you put the offer in, you got the offer accepted, you rounded up the cash, you bought the deal. Then what happened? Was there tenants in it? Did you keep them in?
No.
Or?
Okay, so it was vacant because the elderly lady who lived in there killed herself.
Oh, no.
And so I had been wondering why the sheetrock was missing. And then I found out because the neighbor was telling us. And so it was really easy. We just replaced a piece of sheetrock and then replaced carpets and did painting.
Uh-huh.
I say I wasn't even there. My husband did it. My mom and my kids came over and helped paint.
Okay, so the sheetrock was gone because she killed herself in the trailer, in the house?
Yeah. And so they had to take that piece out because it was covered.
Oh, man, that's crazy. And they didn't disclose that in the purchase?
They didn't say anything, but the neighbor's the one who told us the whole story.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay,
Yeah.
so it had like little minor renovations that you had to do, and then it was rent ready. So did you find a tenant then after that?
Well, I knew what it would be worth. And so what we did was we actually put it on for sale at $90,000, but we put that it would be owner financing was an option. And we learned that from Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Okay.
He talks about that. And so we said we could owner finance. We closed in 1 week. We had it sold They had $5,000 down, 8% interest for 10 years.
Wow.
And so it comes out to like $130,000 that they'll eventually pay over the course of 10 years.
Wow. That's sweet. What a deal.
Yeah. So we get a check for $1,000 a month as a payment, and we have no maintenance, no upkeep, no tenants to deal with, no taxes.
Yeah. No, that's sweet. It's pretty much owning a rental property, but you don't have to deal with anything.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. So I was going to ask, if you had a property manager, but you don't even rent it because you just make money, free money all the time. So that's
Right.
that's great. Okay. So you decided to sell that deal. Then so what happened next? What was your next deal?
That was the hardest part, was finding the next deal. That deal right there was in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even learn about Bigger Pockets until 2017 in like March or April.
Mm-hmm.
So our next deal wasn't even until March of 2019. Well, actually, I take that back. August of 2018. And that was for our personal residence.
Okay. In Texas, right there, close to where your rental property was?
Everything is in Texas. Yes, I got out of the Army, and so we moved to West Texas for me to go to nurse practitioner school.
Okay.
And we wanted to move to a specific area, a specific school district, and we wanted land. And so we were looking everywhere, and everything was out of our price range. And we went into a little cafe in town. We had packed sandwiches and everything. And I told my husband, I was like, what are you doing? We have sandwiches. And he was like, I'm tired of sandwiches.
Yeah.
And so we went into the cafe and just started talking to the people sitting next to us. And they asked what we were in town for. And we said we were looking for a house to buy. And we asked them what they were in town for. And they said they were getting their house ready to put on the market.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they invited us out to look at it. And it is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,400 square feet on 26 acres. And we were just like holding our breath because we expected the price to be like 350 or 400,000.
Mm-hmm.
And we asked her what she wanted for it, and she said 250.
Sweet.
And so it was $100,000 less than market value. And so then we asked her if she was interested in creative financing and if she would carry the note.
Yeah.
And she said she would. And so we made an agreement that it would be 5%, 10% down. So we gave 25,000 down and 5% interest, a 30-year amortization, but we would refi in 5. So we would pay her off in 5. And then we asked her to agree that there would be no payments until 4 months after we closed so that we could find jobs. And she agreed.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a deal. So
Yeah.
that wasn't really it wasn't for an investment property per se, but it ended up being a great investment, I'm sure, because you got it under market value.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to save your money for 4 months while you're looking for a job. And it's probably going to pay off for the refinance too, because now rates are coming back down, and we'll see where they are in a couple years when you have to refinance.
Yes. Well, it actually worked as a perfect investment because we turned right around and pulled out a HELOC.
Oh, sweet.
And used that money to buy more investment properties.
Okay. Well, let's go there then. Let's move to your next thing. What'd you do next?
So the next one was a commercial building in a town next to us. My husband wanted to buy an auto parts store, and he knew that this one was going to go out of business. And so he wanted the building. So he contacted the building owner. He went over there with all 3 kids. She invited him over to her house and said she would sell the building for she started at 130,000, and then he said he wasn't sure he would want to wait. And like, she eventually came down to $100,000 with 20% down, and it's at 5%. And it's amortized over 30 and pay off in 5. So our payment is $600 a month.
For a commercial building.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's where we're going to put our second Napa store, because we bought our first Napa Auto Parts in March.
Mm-hmm.
And we already have lined up with corporate to open store number 2 in January.
Okay. So not just real estate investment, you're doing some business investment as well.
Yes. My husband, I do more of the numbers, but he knows the auto parts. He's a mechanic.
Uh-huh.
So he runs Napa Auto Parts.
Okay. So,
yeah.
So far, what I'm getting out of the story and all the deals that you made is the key takeaways I can see is that you really need to talk to the people. You really need to like ask questions, and don't be afraid to ask for creative financing or different types of things, because you never know. You just never know what the other people are thinking or what they want. And that what you mentioned about your guys' house, the primary residence, you were expecting the price to be 350 or 400,000. So if you would have just came there and you would have said, well, we'll offer you 325, and you think you're offering her a low price, right, for the property, she would have been tickled to death because she's getting 325. But you were smart and you let her say her price first. And I think they talk about that in that
Always
book.
let them say their price first.
Yeah. What's that book? Never Split the Difference. I think somebody else mentioned that. And they talk about that. So you made sure to have her mention the price, and it was way lower than you anticipated. Got a sweet deal. And then you moved to the Napa store, the commercial building. And kind of the same thing worked out there. You made sure to ask and try creative financing, and it worked out. So that's awesome.
Yes. So our next deal, if you don't mind me going ahead and talking about it.
Yeah, let's do it.
It came from my husband being at the Napa store.
Okay.
So he's working at the Napa store, and elderly couple come in, and they want to test their battery for their golf cart. But she refuses to pay $20 for the battery tester. And so my husband said, you know what? Let me just come over and I'll test it for you. I'll figure out what's wrong. Because that's just what we do. He always likes helping people, and especially this elderly couple, they need this golf cart fixed. So he goes over to their house and he's working on it. And they are talking to him, and they said, well, we just use this golf cart to ride around the park. And he's like, what park? And they said, this is a mobile home park. And he looks around and he didn't realize it because it was so nice. And he said, just straight up to them, are you interested in selling?
All right.
And the gentleman says, well, actually, yeah, we are. We've been talking about it lately.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they asked me to come over to talk to them that week. And I couldn't go until Friday, but the man went into my husband's store 3 times that week to make sure we were still coming.
So you knew right there that he was motivated, or that he was interested in it.
Very motivated seller. And so we went over to his house, and he showed me all of his expenses, and he owned everything outright. Showed me all of his expenses and told me all the money that comes in. He told me all their park rules, the way they run everything, which is the way I would have run it too. So they had all the same priorities that I did. And so I asked him to name what price would he look at selling it. It brings in $4,500 a month, and there's one vacant spot that could bring in an extra $600. And he said $300,000
for everything, for the property,
for everything.
Yeah.
for 4.5 acres, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house that they live in, 10 lots, 8 mobile homes. And I said, you've got a deal. Okay, what interest rate do you want? And he said 10%. And I said, okay. So we agreed to it. And whenever I was working on, so then I did all of the contracts myself.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was working on the contracts, I went back over to talk to him about the interest rate. And I said, okay, I'm just wanting to make sure I'm getting all of this right. And he said, no, I don't mean 10% annually. I mean just a flat 10%.
Oh, okay.
He goes, $30,000. That's all. I'm not interested in making money off the interest.
You thought, sweet, what a deal.
I was like, sounds great.
How many years was that amortized over? What was going to be the payment, the terms?
So because it was a flat rate, I asked him, how much money do you need per month? And he said, I need $2,500 a month. I've calculated that if something happens and we need to move into a nursing home, that's how much we would need a month. So I put my payments at $2,500 a month. It's actually amortized over only 11 years and will refi in 5.
All right. So where did you learn this negotiation techniques? Were you reading about this, or you just are a naturally born negotiator?
So as far as negotiation goes,
Because you seem to be asking all the right questions, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
it ends up working out.
So I would say that it's a total mix. It's a mix of Bigger Pockets podcast and listening to what other people say and what they do. Reading more than just Rich Dad Poor Dad, reading the other books that's in his education series.
Mm-hmm.
And also, my husband and I have both wheeled and dealed for so long with everything you could imagine to sell and flip. We've done it.
Okay.
And so that's what I used.
All right. Yeah, no, that's great. And it's great to hear somebody putting that advice into practice. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it's easy to like read the books and hear what they have to say, but to actually go out and do it and like, not feel awkward and ask for these things, or wait for them to say the price, or different things like that. It's hard to do sometimes. So that's awesome that you're doing it. So with the mobile home park, you said it had 10 lots, 8 mobile homes on it. Do you own the mobile homes, or are they owned by the tenants and they just pay lot rent?
So there's 9 homes on it. 8 of them are park owned.
Okay.
1 of them is tenant owned. And then I'm working on putting the last one in.
Okay. So are you planning on keeping those park owned, or are you going to sell those to the tenants?
I'm going to keep them park owned. And I say that because it's a small park. And so just doing the lot rent wouldn't really be beneficial as far as financially go. It would make the property less valuable.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, so because you own the mobile homes as well, do you cover all the maintenance on the mobile homes, or do you have some sort of lease in place for the tenants, cover all the maintenance?
So we cover the maintenance. It's been pretty good so far. And he even had all of the numbers from the year before for what he did for maintenance. And it hasn't been bad so far.
Okay. All right, great. So mobile home's working out, and that was probably pretty recent. So you haven't really owned it for that long yet, have you?
No, I haven't. I closed on it July 1st.
Okay.
And one of the other negotiation agreements that we had with it was the couple was kind of worried and kind of upset when we were doing negotiations, and I asked them what was wrong and what could I do to help them, and they said, we don't want to move, these are our friends.
Oh yeah.
And I said, I don't want you to move, this is your home, you've been here for like 20 years plus, and those are your friends, and you're in your 70s, I don't think you should be moving. And so we came to an agreement that they would live there in their house and continue to manage it for free.
Okay, sweet. So they manage the property and you don't have to pay them, but they get to live in their house for free.
Yes.
Oh, what a deal. Okay, that's works perfect. And I mean, that's even better than finding a manager and having them live there, because they've been managing it for 20 years or however long they've had the property. So they know all about it.
Yes.
That's perfect. Wow, what a great deal. So is there anything else about this property? So was there any mistakes that you made in this purchase that you might not make the next time that you could point out?
I would say no. And the reason that I didn't make any mistakes in this purchase was because I went, before I closed on it, I already had a contract, but before I closed, I went to Frank Rolfe's Mobile Home University. He was a recent podcast guest on Bigger Pockets. I had learned about him from Bigger Pockets podcast, from their forums. And I went to his conference and I learned everything that I needed to learn about due diligence and about contracts. And so I did it right.
Okay, and what was that? Frank Rolfe?
Yes, Rolfe.
Rolfe? Okay.
Yes, and he has Mobile Home Park University.
Okay, yeah, we'll link to that in the show notes, because mobile home parks are becoming a hot ticket item now. You know what I mean? Especially since Brandon Turner on Bigger Pockets, he's buying them and he starts talking about them, and everybody's moving towards mobile home parks. So we'll link to that in the show notes. So if somebody else is out there, hopefully they can take the course and not make any mistakes like you did, because this worked out great for you.
Yes.
Cool. And so on top of the mobile home park, you do have note investing, right? You've done a note investing something. Tell me about that.
So the note investing was the first flip.
Oh, okay.
And that's what it's considered. I'm the bank because I'm owner financing, therefore I own the note.
Oh, okay. Right. So since you're owner financing the property to the people, they pay you their monthly mortgage, you're the bank, and then if they default, you get the property back and you get to keep all the profits you've made and then resell and do it again if that ever happens.
Yes. Worst case scenario, I do it all again.
Worst case scenario, which ends up being a pretty good scenario most of the time. So that's cool.
It is. Yes.
Okay, cool. So where are you guys headed from here? What's the next plan? Are you going to continue mobile home parks or move into different asset class or what?
So I'm going to continue mobile home parks. I'm currently looking for any parks in Texas right now. We're opening our second Napa store in January. So we're getting this commercial building that we bought ready. I did, on the side, I bought a 2-bedroom, 1-bath in a little town next to us. And I demoed the inside and we're redoing it to turn it into a rental. And then I did buy a small piece of raw land that was also off market. And I should be closing on that today because I just flipped it, is what I did.
Okay, so you kind of wholesaled the raw land.
I did, in a sense that, but I actually already purchased it and then turned right around and put it on.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sweet. So, and then the 2-bedroom, 1-bath little house, are you going to burr that?
Yes, that's what I'm doing.
That's what you're doing. So for the listeners, if they don't know what BRRRR is, which they all should, but what is that?
It's you buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat.
So what's the
And
benefit?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, what's the benefit of doing that?
Okay, the benefit of doing that is that if you evaluate your deal right, when you refinance, you should be able to pull out all of the money that you had initially put in and turn around to invest into another one that you're going to do the same thing on.
All right. So yeah, you can buy the property at one price, you fix it up, you rent it out, and then if you did your numbers right, like you're saying, then it'll price for much higher. Then you can take all your cash back out when you refinance it, and then you pretty much have a house for either little money into it or no money sometimes, and you're making up to an infinite return on your money.
Yes.
That's sweet. That's great. That's exactly what people should shoot for to do, especially with single family. I mean, multifamily can do it as well. So that's great.
Yes.
So, where are you going from here? I did ask that, but I think we got kind of sidetracked. So
You did, but my main goal, I'm really planning on focusing and on sticking with mobile home parks. That's what I know. I know mobile homes.
Mhm.
My husband and I both grew up. He was a 1980s model mobile home. I was a 1970s model. And we grew up replacing floors, replacing windows and doors, and recovering the roof so that it didn't leak. And that's just what I know. It's much lower cost to do a rehab on one.
Mhm.
And I'm familiar with them and the structure.
Okay, so how are you going to go find these mobile home parks?
Well, I actually, not only do I use Google as in to search which home parks are around there, I went to the city's website and I asked if they have a current zoning map. They told me where the zoning map was located, and I find all the markers that say mobile home parks. And then I go and I drive them, and then I find the owner
Okay,
and I
so
talk to them.
yeah, and you talk to them and you do your fantastic negotiating techniques.
Yes.
So you're going to plan on trying for owner financing on these parks? Or are you going to, because I do know they did open up, um, you know, yeah, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac did open up lending on mobile homes. So
They did.
are you going to try to get bank financing, or I guess the goal would be more owner financing if it works out?
So the goal is more owner financing, unless it's like over $1 million, and then it would qualify for Freddie Mac or Fannie Mae. And then in that sense, I would probably be more likely to use them.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. So I'm excited to see where you're going. I think you and Brandon Turner can have a little mobile home park off and see who gets more units in the next 5 years. He's got a little jump
Yes.
on you.
Yes. And my goal is 1,000 doors for mobile homes in the next 5 years.
In the next 5 years. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to hold you to it, and I'm going to have you back
Okay.
on when you get to that 1,000 units.
That'd be great.
Okay. Well, so we talked about it a little bit, but what are your favorite resources for learning about real estate investing? Is it books or podcasts or seminars? You've kind of done all of it. So what's your favorite one?
I think my favorite is podcasts, because they have such variety in the people that they interview.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to glean advice that would be specific to my situation from each different person. And even if it's a podcast where I read the title and I don't think I would be interested and I start listening to it, I always get some kind of awesome, pearls from it.
Yeah. Like here in this episode, I think the best pearl so far is just don't be afraid to ask and let them come forward with the price first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So do you have a favorite app that you use? Something that's like makes your life way easier?
Okay, so I do. I use the Zillow app. And the reason I use their app is because I can do a filter for sale by owner. And then I can also do a map area, but I use their payment calculator a lot. because it's super easy to get to, very accessible. But the other app that I use is the realtor.com app, because you can choose a map overlay and do a crime area overlay.
Okay, Trulia has that too, and those are
Okay.
great. Yeah, those are great resources for that. I do like those. Okay, so what is your best advice for somebody just getting started in real estate? What can they do that'll help them in their future career?
So what would help them would be to actively seek out people in your area for a circle of support, and people who would have the same things in common. So actively look for a real estate investing group, or a meetup, like a Bigger Pockets meetup in your area. And you can even put ads on Facebook that you're looking for those people to hang with or to talk to, and get a circle of support.
Yeah, that seems to be a reoccurring theme when I ask this question is the networking part and just talking to people and
Yes.
really just putting yourself out there. And if you're new to the game and you don't know anything, yeah, that's okay. Just ask questions and don't act overly confident or whatever. Be humble and take advice and listen to the people, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what about a mindset tip? Something that when you're kind of feeling down, or you're feeling unmotivated or not making progress, what do you do to kind of get yourself back on track?
Okay. So what I do is I go to Les Brown YouTube videos.
Okay.
Les Brown is a motivational speaker, and he'll have small clips. He is so incredibly inspiring, and it really helps me break out of the poor, pitiful me.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, okay, I can do this. I really can. I've got the knowledge, and I've got all of the resources available to me, and Google is free.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I kind of do the same thing. I go listen to like Andy Frisella and get him yelling at me over the internet, and then I kind of jump into gear, or at least I try
Yes.
to.
And also, there's one, I think his YouTube is called Eric the Hip Hop Preacher. And he was a football coach, I think. And he yells a lot, and it's really great. And so that's really motivating.
Okay. Okay. So to motivate Bethany here, we just gotta get her watching a video that's yelling at her all day long. Check. I understand. Okay. So what would be an influencer of yours? I guess would it be what you already mentioned, but somebody that you kind of follow that you can learn real estate investing or just stay motivated from, that, somebody that's not just out there trying to make themselves sound great.
So the influencer that I follow for personal development, which overflows into my real estate investing,
Mm-hmm.
I follow Rachel Hollis.
Rachel Hollis?
Yes.
Okay.
She is a public speaker, and she wrote the book Girl Wash Your Face.
Okay.
And she's very empowering.
Okay, great. Rachel Hollis. We'll link to that in the show notes. Is there anything else you'd like to add, or any other tips or advice for people getting into real estate investing or after mobile home parks or anything like that?
Yes, there is one book that, along with Rich Dad Poor Dad, is phenomenal. And it's The ABCs of Real Estate by Ken McElroy.
Okay, that's one of the Rich Dad advisors, right?
Yes, it is.
I think I have that one. Yep, I'm looking at it right there. The ABCs of Real Estate Investing. Okay.
It's a phenomenal book.
Yeah, that's a good one. Talked about all kinds of great information in there. Well, Autumn, thanks for being on today. Is there anywhere where people can find out more about you or contact you with questions or anything like that?
I'm just on Facebook.
Okay.
That's all I really have time for social media. So I'm just under Autumn Rankin, and my name's hyphenated with my maiden name also. So it's Autumn Childers-Rankin.
Okay. Yep. We'll link to that in the show notes. And Autumn, thanks again for being on. I'm excited to have you back on with your 1,000 mobile home units. In hopefully, let's make it 2.5 years. You'll have 1,000 units. Let's shoot for that goal.
I think that sounds good.
Okay, Autumn. Well, thanks for being on. You have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.